some of the essays for some of the programs are timed. So you actually can't prepare. Like there's no faking it. You just have to be good. They're going to give you, can't remember the exact amount of time, but 10 to
Yeah.
20 minutes to write. They're going to give you a prompt and you have to write it there and then live. Today we're diving into one of the most applied to and prestigious universities in Canada, University of Toronto. U of T receives over 90,000 applications each year, more than any other Canadian university. It's ranked number one in Canada, in the top 25 globally. It's produced 5 Nobel Prize winners, 4 Canadian prime ministers, and 11 Academy Award winners. U of T is a powerhouse. Today, we're going to cover with Nicola the top programs at U of T, how to pick the right campus, how admissions work at U of T, including grades, the essays, and the video interviews, and common mistakes that sink strong applications. And you're going to get some tips from Nicola, who's helped hundreds of students get into UofT. So whether you're a parent or a student, this episode is your roadmap to learning everything about getting into University of Toronto. So Nicola, thank you for joining us today. I want to start off with, you've helped thousands of students, I think, at this point, apply to UofT and get in. Let's start with why UofT matters. Like, why is it such a great school that is so popular? And dive into how to pick the right program and campus. So what makes it such a powerful brand in Canada and worldwide?
Well, I mean, it's like literally, I think the biggest thing is, yeah, it's like what you said, number one school in Canada. But it's known globally. I think we have a lot of international students looking to go to University of Toronto. A lot of opportunity, and it's like obviously located in Toronto. It's just a powerhouse school, known for its academics, known for its research, known for connections. There's just so much of an
Yeah.
opportunity there for students. So I think the biggest thing for me is like I have students, even if they have no intention of applying to University of Toronto, they still talk about it. Like
Yes.
it still comes up as a conversation with pretty much every student that I've met.
Yeah.
So and there are students that have no intention of applying to U of T. It's not the right school for them, and they know that. Sometimes in grade 9 or 10, but it's still like this is a conversation that we always have in some way or another. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. No, for sure. And I think, and by the way, someone's gonna listen to this. It's Toronto, not Toronto. They're gonna correct us on that. I can hear it already. They're gonna
okay.
say, no, you're not from Toronto. But we know when it comes to University of Toronto, how should students, because they've got 3 campuses, how should students think about the 3 different campuses that they have there? Like, does it matter? Because one of the things that makes UFT so, I guess you could say, attractive is the location, the employment opportunity around the big city, biggest city in Canada. People are attracted to that because there are more career opportunities. It's the largest economic powerhouse city in the country, right? So why do the campuses matter, and how should students think about that?
Yeah, they definitely do matter for certain programs. So, for instance, Rotman, it is only offered at the St. George campus. So there are specific programs that are only offered at certain campuses. So you have no choice. Like if you're applying to a certain program, you will have to go to that specific campus. Um, but I think it really depends on the person. Of course, I would say St. George is probably the most popular campus, just because it's like in the heart of the city. There's a lot going on. It's a connection, like to just a lot of what's going on in Toronto.
Yeah.
However, all of the campuses. I don't know. Have you ever been there, Ari? Have you been able to?
And I know the St. George campus, it's like you're on Bay Street, which is basically Canada's Wall Street, our version of that,
Yeah.
for the most part, and it's right in the thick of things.
Right, right. Yeah. So, I mean, I think it's different for every student, and sort of like what they're wanting from a school. Obviously, St. George being the biggest campus, the most popular, more people going to it, you will probably feel a little bit more like you're maybe, I don't know, I don't like to say this, but a bit of a number. Like there's a lot of students at that campus. But I think that's something that students should really explore if they are. If they are going to be if you are going to be going to the St. George campus, there's also, you do have to actually choose another option as well.
Mhm.
Um, sorry, it's slipping my mind right now, but the campuses actually have
Colleges.
colleges, yes,
Yes.
specific colleges, yeah. And so a student would have to pick a specific college as well. And some of those colleges are extremely, extremely like popular as
Mhm.
well. By just this is what's so funny about it, by picking a specific college, sometimes that determines whether you have to actually write a supplemental, and a lot of students don't know that.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. For example, if you decide to go to you want to go to St. George campus for computer science, you do actually have to write a supplemental. But if you're applying to University of Toronto computer science and you want to go to a different campus, you decide to like maybe go to Mississauga, you do not actually have to write a supplemental. So there's all these little it's
Yeah.
very intricate, a lot of things that you learn about it. Yeah, a lot of students don't know. Sometimes, yeah, I mean, I think it's a really good thing to know all of your options well ahead of you actually, having to go into these applications. Because for U of T, we all know they can start pretty early. They have what we call early acceptance or early entrance deadlines. And so, you want to make sure you know everything prior to those deadlines. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, because there's three. There's St. George's campus in downtown Toronto.
Yes.
There's U of T Scarborough, and
Scarborough
there's
and
U of T Mississauga. And you're
yes.
telling me the campus I want to apply to and the college I pick, like say Victoria College, it
Yes.
determines whether I have to write a supplemental application or not. So I'm applying into U of T, but I'm also applying into the college associated with the campus I'm applying to. So it gets complicated.
Exactly, exactly. Yeah. And I think, a lot of students go into like programs like computer, because computer science is, definitely a very difficult program to get into. But I would say that depending on what campus you're actually applying to, I, you know, St. George campus is definitely going to be a little bit harder to get into, and that is why you also have that supplemental that you have to write. So they're going to really look at, obviously your grades. That will be your main factor, of course, but they also, require you to write a supplemental because that campus is so popular for computer science.
Right. Yeah. And I guess I want to quickly cover as we go into now how U of T admissions work. I want to cover some of the most competitive, and they're competitive for good reason, also lucrative and attractive programs at U of T. Now, I think that's probably engineering, Rotman
Yeah.
Commerce, computer science,
Yes.
maybe even their sciences program for some students, right? What are the most competitive programs at U of T in your opinion, and why are they competitive?
Well, yeah, it's just like what you said. Like definitely Rotman Commerce, engineering, um, for sure. Like I think the U of T engineering program, yeah, probably their most competitive program. Um,
Absolutely.
yeah, and I would say in computer science for sure, architecture, like absolutely all of those programs are yeah, they're difficult. They're difficult to get into. And mainly because they have so many applicants applying. And another thing is just like I don't know, I think maybe we touched just on this on our last podcast, but nowadays, those programs that we just talked about, engineering, business,
Yeah.
they computer science, they are such popular programs. We have way more students applying to those programs. Um, and very, fewer applying to like arts and yeah, just like a general Bachelor of Arts. So what's happened is it's made those programs so much more competitive, um,
Right.
because there's more applicants going that way. And yeah, and students are working harder, they're getting better grades. They now, schools are now taking a more holistic view of
Yeah.
students. So grades will still always be like they'll always be number one for sure. But now what they've decided is, because so many students they're getting these low to mid to high 90s. They have to add another aspect to the application, and
Totally.
that usually comes into having both some kind of written component, or like a video response interview style supplemental, right? So, yeah.
And I think if I and I was pulling this up as we were talking. If you look at the recommended grades for these programs, and not necessarily recommended, like because there's a minimum grade, and students get that confused. The minimum grade is the minimum grade you need to apply. The recommended grade is what most students who get in have that. And I think we'll break it down by top programs here. Rotman Commerce, the average GPA is above 90%, and top students often have a 93% or higher to stand out. For applied sciences and engineering, you're really looking at about a 92% or higher, and you need to have great grades in advanced math, physics, advanced functions, and chemistry. Computer science, 90% or higher as well. Life science, 88 to 92%, depending on the campus and the program you're going to. And then UofT's architecture program should be in mid to high 80% as well. And that's the rigor needed to get your foot in the door. And you need to have a strong profile to stand out at a school.
Yeah, yeah, and then I would say it gets broken down even a little bit more, Ari. So, like, there's many, like in engineering, you can pick the actual kind of engineering you want to go into. So, like engineering science, for instance, Kiara, who got into U of T engineering science,
Yeah.
that I'm going to be honest, most students that get into that program, um, they're ranging somewhere around a 96-97% average, to be honest with
Yeah.
you. So it's yeah, it's one thing to kind of go into engineering in general, but when you are, thinking about aerospace or mechatronics or, or the engineering science program, it goes up even a little bit more because those are even more competitive programs, more desired programs, definitely. So yeah, and it's hard to know all that, right? Like when you go on the website to U of T, yeah, they kind of say, yeah, you need the average student is about a 90%. I would say that is like whatever they put on there, it's kind of on the low side. You should add to that for sure. And then you have to also think of that other side and this is why the applications are so hard is because, yeah, you have to get those great grades. But U of T, especially for like their business programs, their engineering programs, computer science they love to see that students have had experiences that align with like what they want to.
Yeah.
They really do. And so, because what it shows them is you have that commitment, and it shows them that, you've actually researched and done a little bit of the legwork to see, what you might be doing in your future career. And so they love to see that. And whenever I'm guiding a student, they always say, well, what should I write about? What should I, on my
Right.
application? I always say, well, if you're an engineering student, you probably should lean to more towards like, some of your STEM activities and
Totally. Yes.
and talk about that for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah. So competitive, but I mean, I think I think some students, one of the biggest questions I get is like, should I even bother? Like, I don't know, and I say, yeah, you absolutely should because from year to year, things do change slightly. Maybe this year the applicants that are applying, they might be 1% lower, right? Or it might go up too. Like you have to be prepared for that. But I have seen students that have done so well or so like they've worked so hard that maybe just the academic part they're not the best test takers or but they've done some things where they've really been able to pull their marks up. And they've also gotten a lot of like practical experience. Maybe they're on the robotics club and they want to go into
Mm.
engineering, or maybe they started, a computer science program at their school or done some math competitions. Those are the kinds of things that, U of T really love to see. They like to see that you challenge yourself and that you get that experience. So I always say, go for it. Like put this on your list and why not try? Why not try? This is something that
Yeah.
you can do. Yeah, and I mean, I have a lot of students. It's funny, like they learn a lot more about U of T, and they're excited when they get that offer. Not everybody, in the end, chooses to go to University of Toronto because it is your first year there is going to be it's going to be a tough year. Like there's no sugarcoating.
Yes. It's the jump up and the rigor is intense for so
Yeah,
many students, and I think that's one of the key parts. It is academically rigorous, and we get a lot of funny like students are like, don't come to UofT, we get a little bit of that because it's hard, and we get and it's good to set the expectations. It's hard to get in. It's also difficult when you're there, right? They're looking for that person who's truly passionate and has a track record of, I guess you could say, being involved in that field as you mentioned, so they can actually handle the rigor needed. And I want to dive into, we talked about averages and then how to stand out a bit with what to have on your applications. How does the UofT application work through OUAC? Like, what are the key deadlines that matter when students are applying? Because there's early admissions, regular admissions, getting OUAC, and knowing when to apply. So, what are your rapid fire like? What are the key deadlines that matter, and how does that
Yeah.
application?
Yeah, so with OUAC, I mean, OUAC is like it's kind of a process that anybody applying to Ontario universities, you're going to go through OUAC. BC has one as well. Alberta has one, and then other provinces, because there's not as many schools or bigger schools within those provinces, you would just apply pretty much directly to that school. So Ontario, I typically, if I'm working with a student, I say, let's just get your OUAC application done. Because it's just basically an application. All you're doing is putting in like personal information, parent information, your high school background. That's all you're really doing there. It's just telling the school that you want to apply. And I say that can be done really early. Like I even tell students, like, get it done, especially if you're applying to UofT. They do have some scholarships that are due like in early November, and in order for you to apply to those scholarships, you would need to actually put your OUAC application in first. So they happen in November. I know that Queens as well is another school that does the same thing. Queens does not actually have early deadlines or early admission deadlines, but they do have some scholarships that, like the major admission awards, if you want to apply to those, you actually have to apply to the school early through OUAC. Now your supplementals will come later, so there's lots of time for that. But because U of T has early admissions, I say we get your OUAC application in even kind of the end of October is usually pretty good, like last week of October. And you apply to all your other schools as well too. But your engineering supplemental is typically due like right around the beginning of December, between December and December the 15th, for all of the main programs like computer science, engineering, commerce. You're going to have that done very, very early.
Yeah.
If you apply, it just gives you time to get the information back from the university. We know a lot of what's going to be on that supplementary, so we can really help prep, but gives that time to get that information, and then you have that month and a half or so to really put something together.
Yeah, that makes sense because you can prepare everything right, but
Yes.
ultimately the application changes every year. And
It,
like while the actual foundation of the application is the same, the application does change every year. So you do have to prepare. You can only prepare so far. You can prepare, but you do have to do it. And some of the essays for some of the programs are timed, so you actually can't prepare. Like there's no faking it. You just have to be good. You with some of the programs you're applying to, I believe engineering, if I'm not mistaken, right, Nicola? Yeah.
yes, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
So engineering, if you're
mhm,
doing that, you can prep all your essays in advance, but when
yes,
you're there and you're writing, they're going to give you, I can't remember the exact amount of time, but 10 to 20 minutes to write. They're going to give you a prompt and you have to write it there and then live. So the
exactly.
only way to prepare is by authentically knowing what to write about, knowing your experience, and having practice in that time crunch environment. And students don't realize that they sometimes, some of them even, and you have a scheduled time too. You can't do it at any time. You have a scheduled time at which you have to sit down and write your UofT application to these programs, and they time you for that 20 minutes. And students just kind of don't realize that. They think, oh yeah, in grade 12, I'll hit submit at one point. It's like, no, you hit submit. You got a meeting time. You have to be on at that time, and you're writing your application. And they don't even realize that's how it works for some of the top programs.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, like I mean, it's basically you have you're given the information and you have up until a certain time to get things done. However, once you click, you're ready to do your actual supplemental or your recorded piece that you have to do. You can't click on and off of that usually, right? Like it's
Yeah.
like you got to be there. You got to sit down. I would say on average, it depends on the school and the program, but you need about an hour like to do that, right? Which means, yeah, like you've got to have enough stuff to talk about. You've got to have enough, confidence to sit there for an hour and tell U of T why you would be a great candidate to come to that school. And that takes practice. That's really not just understanding and having a bunch of like leadership roles that we talked about, but like really understanding again why you've done that, why you've been a part of that, and then also the impact that you've made, and also what skills have you developed, like what key perspectives do you think that you've gained through high school or even before that is going to be essential to help you as a student at the University of Toronto. And one thing, I think this is the biggest thing that students forget always is like, U of T really loves to see students that are going to add to the University of Toronto, right? I mean, that's why they brag about all of the great people that have, kind of come out of U of T, right? That have graduated from there. So they love to see what are you going to bring to the University of Toronto that's different. And they love it when students think really big. So like nothing like, you say you want to be an astronaut, you should be talking about, being an astronaut.
Yeah.
Whatever.
And trying to do everything to back it up.
Exactly. Yeah. They want those big goals. They want those big dreams. And they want to see, that you have really done and taken the steps that you need to be prepared for that. Yeah.
Yeah, no, totally. That track record is so important. And we've talked about now grades, we've talked about a little bit OUAC and when you should be doing it,
Yeah.
a little bit of the videos and interviews and how it can be timed and you have to prepare really well. Um, and some of the don'ts, I guess you also shared. I want to talk about what students should be doing before they even apply. So what can a grade 9 and grade 10 student do right now that sets them up for success down the line?
Yeah. That's a really good question. Because grade 9 and 10, I think a lot of parents go, well, grade 9, grade 10, they got lots of time. Like, yeah, we don't got to worry about it. Grade 9 and 10 really is, I think, where students can have a great base academically. If they are, if they are struggling a little bit, in maybe say, and I'm talking engineering here or maybe business or something, right? Where math is like essential. And if they're struggling with those areas, but they really know, like, I want to go down that road of becoming an engineer or I want to work in business or something. You have to have math. Like you have to be well in it. It's a prerequisite, and they're going to look at that mark. They're going to focus. They're going to focus on your overall average, but they're going to go, okay, how did they do math? They're going to pull that out. So I would say like grade 9 and 10, like those are the years. Like first of all, that you should be. If you're struggling with it, you should be getting some help with that.
Hmm.
Talking to teachers, tutoring. I think there's even some great resources, Khan Academy, or
Yeah.
like free resources out there. Like make sure that you get the bait, because when you go into grade 11, that's grade 11 is your most important year. It's not grade 12. We talked about this last time too. It's not grade 12. It's grade 11, and so grade 11 you can do so much. You can show U of T, just how set up you are. But that really has to start in grade 9 because you're going to be like struggling in grade 11. It's going to be difficult. First of all, academically, make sure you're set up. Make sure, like, if in grade 9 and 10, if you can get ahead a little bit on things, get ahead. If you need some extra support, get that extra support, right?
Mhm.
Especially in your math, your sciences for sure, and English. Like English, like a lot of my STEM students, they're like, well, I'm like they tell me their marks. Well, I got a 98 in math. I got a 97 in physics. I got a 98 in chemistry. And then I go, okay, well, and they leave it out purposely. What about English? Where's
Yeah.
English? 87. And I go, okay, well, 87 is not terrible. It's very good. But like, what can we do? What can we do to sort of get that mark up? It doesn't have to be at 97 or 98, but what can we do to kind of get at least to the 90s? Let's pull that up so your overall average is like,
Mhm.
it's good, right?
Yeah.
So I think grades, number one. Number two is if you are, if you're really seriously thinking engineering, STEM field, like, going down that road, business, architecture, like, you want to go into those fields, then you need to start doing some things that, lead into that, right? So
Mm.
join your STEM club at school. If you don't have a STEM club at school, that might be your key to create an initiative around creating the first STEM club at
Yeah,
school. So,
totally.
so number one. Number two is like you can always practice. You can always like practice your interview skills and start thinking about things like what are important things to you, and what are the things that you're really strong at versus like what do you need to improve, because you're certainly going to be asked questions like that, and you need to be able to answer that on those interviews that you're going to have, whether it's at UofT or Waterloo or wherever else that you're planning to go. So I
Right.
would say practice, like, practice your professionalism, practice your interview, practice your interview skills, get that experience to show you like, yeah, I'm committed to this. I'm doing my best. I'm not just like waking up one day on the morning of, my first day of grade 12 and saying, oh, I'm going to be an engineer because,
Right.
mom and dad told me that would be a good thing to do. That's not what they want to see, right? They want to
Yeah.
see where it started and where you first had that like great experience. And then what have you done to really, improve your skills? What have you done to like solidify? Yeah, like I want to become an engineer.
Yeah. No, totally. I mean, I'm so glad you touched on that.
Mhm.
Having that academic foundation, getting confident in those key programs and key courses. So grade 11, you can really stand out. So also, if your grade 11 grades aren't good, it makes early admissions a difficult thing to pursue, or you sometimes have to skip it, right? If you're not in a decent position. I'm so glad you covered that because students sometimes miss that. And then beginning to sample and build and show your commitment to these key initiatives that you're actually looking to do, right? Key initiatives tying to what you're wanting to study is really important. Now, you mentioned it earlier. Grade 11, in many ways, is more important than grade 12, right?
Yeah.
If I'm in grade 11, what should I prioritize right now to put myself in a good spot to get into a competitive university like UofT?
Yeah. Well, okay. So again, and depending on what you're going into, um, they're basically going to be looking at your top. They're looking at your top six courses. So really, like grade 12, they are going to look at your top six courses from grade 12. However, because U of T is a school that offers early admissions, and if you're going to apply by the early admission deadline, that's December 1st in some cases, or December 2nd. Like sometimes it's December, yeah, falls sort of in between there. So, you're in grade 12 and you have very, very little to show them of grade 12,
Hmm.
right? So your grade 11 marks are what they're going to be looking at. And if you have done very, very well in, say in grade 12, they want you to have, maybe your calculus and vectors. They might want you to have your physics 12, chemistry 12, and your English 12. And if you don't have all of those marks yet, they're going to go back and they're going to look at those grade 11 marks. So how you did in those prerequisites, which were in grade 11. So if you did really well, sometimes you will get that offer because they're like, okay, well, you're enrolled in the grade 12 classes and you've started them. And we see that you've done very well. So we can now look at your supplemental and decide, yeah, whether you'd be a good candidate for grade 12.
Hmm.
That's where it comes in. And it's very, very important. I would say, I would say also, if you can in grade 11, if you can get a grade 12 class done, especially in one of those key courses, if you can take like maybe a grade 12 math, or you can take one of your sciences, if that's something that you're really, then get that done in grade 11, because they are also going to look at how you've gone above and beyond. Like, how do you stand out from other students?
Yeah.
So yeah, so I mean, a lot of students ask me about AP and IB as well. Yeah, you do get some small bonus points for those classes too. Like they will notice that if you've done very well in those classes.
If you do well, it's great. If you don't, then it doesn't help.
Then you might want to reconsider. I would say like grade 11 sort of shows you, like if you are taking those advanced classes, and you've really struggled, it might be the time where you say, I might just go back to those regular classes, and because I know I'm going to do very well.
Yeah,
Um,
totally.
sure, I think IB and AP are great if you are academically, like you have no trouble, right?
Yes,
Then absolutely to challenge yourself to get it. Because yeah, with some of those classes, you can even get credits towards your university. Like you can skip
totally.
over those things, right? But yeah, academics, just set yourself up, and just make sure like you have all the right classes. Number one, because I've seen so many students like come to us in grade 12 and like I'm gonna apply to this, and I'm going, well,
Yeah,
when are you planning to take your physics? I have to take physics. Yeah, and then they don't even know. So set yourself up, make sure you know everything that you need to have, and do very well in those core courses. And if you can get an extra course in that shows them that you went above and beyond, then by all means do that.
yeah, totally. And then what about extracurriculars in grade 11?
Yeah, same thing. I mean, if you can get them started in grade 9 and grade 10 or even earlier, uh, continuing with those extracurriculars and taking on even more of a leadership role. So say you join your student council, and you did a few things within, you're more of a member and you kind of helped out and were sort of volunteering, but you didn't really have that leadership. Like you didn't take on anything on yourself. I would say grade 11 is the time to like step up and say, I'm going to create this initiative within my student council, or this year I'm going to run the Terry Fox like run. I'm going to make sure I am my teacher's kind of right hand man, and I'm going to like run it and get that leadership. So it's a big time to step up, create initiatives, make sure that, like continue with things because you show commitment, right? Because on U of T, they're always going to ask, like, how long have you been doing this? When did you
Yeah.
start? When did it end? Or is it something that's ongoing? Very, very, very important to applications as well. They don't want to see, again, students jumping in with 2 feet in that grade 12 year. Like it's got to happen well before that.
Yeah, no, for sure. Yeah, I guess like really what we're saying is it's not, there's time. Don't leave it too late. In grade 11, you can get to work on that. And I guess what you're saying there is that like the authenticity of it really matters, like because they can tell if you're just doing it for the sake of doing it, making
Mhm.
it something you truly care about, and then, as you said, challenging yourself, right? And I want to, one of my last questions before I'll turn it over to you to give some final advice before we wrap up, is, you know, can you walk us through an example of like a student who got in and what did their profile look like? And you can, and you don't have to share all the information, obviously, and we can leave names out of it, but what did that profile look like? And how did they do? And, just so people they have an idea. Hey, here's a student who got into U of T and this is what they did, like a real student. And if you can break it down a little bit.
Yeah. Is it like, are we talking engineering? Since engineering is probably a
Let's do
tough.
engineering. Yeah, give us an example of a U of T engineering student who got in. What did their profile look like? The grades, the extracurriculars, what did they do?
Okay. Yeah. So I have a student. Yes. I still talk about him to this day. He actually, not only did he get into U of T, but he actually ended up winning the Schulich. He won a award as well. And his grades, they were very high. They were very high. They were sitting at about a 97% is what he had. Key activities that he had, he was the president. I guess he was like the president, ended up becoming the president, or CEO, they called it, of his remote operated vehicle team at school. So I guess it was just like they created remote operating vehicles. I'm not, I don't know all of the details about that. He created this. They did a whole bunch of stuff. They did a whole bunch of like competitions. He also went into many of the Waterloo math contests as well, and he was his school champion, his high school math champion as well. So very, very good at that. He also was part of his student council. He started that early on in grade, I believe grade 10 or something like grade 10. And he worked himself up and he was selected like president in his grade 12 year. And he organized just a bunch of different events for his school to boost the morale, and a lot of fundraisers as well. I think he did a few like a cake auction and a bunch of other things. And he did something too at his school that was like really impressive to me. He actually raised some money through one of the fundraisers to improve some of the wheelchair accessibility at his school as well too.
Hmm.
So he took like kind of an initiative. He saw that and thought, I'm going to put my little my engineering talent into this as well, and did some fundraising, and then also helped out with that as well. So yeah, so that, I mean, he's a great candidate, and it really, I mean, he got into every school he applied to. He got into,
Absolutely. Yeah.
every school he applied to. So that's what I think a great student looks like. It doesn't have to be exactly those things, but I mean, he has 3 or 4 like really, really key leadership roles there that,
Yeah.
and then of course the great grades. And it's kind of funny because this student, a big thing, I worked with him for quite a long time. It was over a couple of years. And his issue was the writing. His issue was like the struggles with like, how do I like, I've done this stuff, but I don't really think it's that great, or I don't think it's that
Hmm.
important. And it was like, well, it is very impressive. And trying to get him to really be able to put that down on paper and also express it through his words.
Oh
That was a
yeah.
real tough thing for him. English was not his strong subject. He's a STEM student. And so that took a lot of work. And that's where we focused, right? It was just like, the writing, and the practicing, like answering questions that may have been on, on the interviews, and just getting him to feel confident with his answers and still, feel very authentic, right? Like still be himself, but just raise that confidence up. And he did very well. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I love that. I mean, I think that's a stupendous profile. No wonder he won many scholarships and got into the top programs.
Yeah.
And I would say that's almost an ideal profile for people that are listening at home that are like, wow, that person is incredible because he is, right? And I think what you'll find a lot of the things we've shared, he has that track record of years of work mapping to what he wants to study. He's passionate, well-rounded, and seems like a person that genuinely cares and gives back, and that you're also looking for good, well-rounded people, right? Not just resume stuffers. And that's really what we love doing and love building with students, right? And building their skills. And Nick, our last question and we'll wrap. If you had just 30 seconds with a student who wants to get into UofT and you had to coach them through it, what advice would you give them in 30 seconds?
I would say, yeah, like I'd say like really, really focus on your grades. Keep those great, like do what you can to keep those up, get the support that you need. Um, and yeah, and again, get those activities underneath your belt. Like definitely try new things. And if you're having trouble finding experiences, um, you know, connect with people. Like, there's no harm at all in you creating something. Like if you're really passionate about it, create it yourself, look out into your community. But those are the 2 things that are really, really gonna like build everything that you need to be a great candidate.
I love it. And I think that was actually around 30 seconds as well. So thank you so much, Nicola. And for parents and students listening, I hope this gave you an overview of at least what to expect, what UofT is looking for from somebody who's, just done this many, many times. And if you're wondering whether you're a competitive candidate for UofT or want help building your application, you can check us out at admissionprep.com. We help students get into top schools across North America and love to see if we can help. Thank you very much.
Okay.